full-size caliber subcompact gun. Like I've said in some other videos, this is Nutnfancy, of course. I am a big fan of carrying the biggest caliber you can consistently. And when we talk about consistency in carry, that means you're going to have it on your person like a lot. Pretty much all the time, whenever possible. And if that's the case, you're going to find that you're going to need a gun that is comfortable in carry. And that is indeed the PM series by Kahr, both the PM-9 and the PM-40. And even though you're carrying a small, lightweight gun, it's still packing either a 9mm or 40 caliber chambering, which is adequate for most social purposes. Great guns, these PM guns. Accurate, durable, reliable, ease of carry. All the good things I said about it in my tabletop review of the PM-9 still hold. I mean, I'll stand by all of those things. The only disadvantage to the PM series is the cost. It is an expensive gun. Whether you go with the PM-9 or the PM-40, pricey. Are there other options? Well, if you were to read and believe everything Kahr says about their PM series, you would think that it's the only game in town. But it's not, and thank heavens. As good as the PM series like this PM-9 is, there are now other options. Enter the Kel-Tec PF-9. That's right. You've seen me with my shooting review of this gun. Now comes a tabletop review where I clean up all the points that a potential buyer or a potential police officer, law enforcement officer might want to consider prior to making a purchase of a subcompact semi-automatic pistol. And this again is the Kel-Tec 9mm PF-9. You'll see my shooting review of this. Heck, I'll just put an annotation right there. Also, it's probably off on the right hand side if you get bored. You can go check that out. Anyways, it took me several weeks to get the data to do an adequate review on this gun. That's because there's a lot to consider, believe it or not. We're going to go down just like I normally do when I do a pistol review of my talking points. I'll try to hit all the specific parameters, characteristics, and observations for what it's worth. Probably not much. And off we go. Probably will be a two-parter because there's just a lot to discuss. We're going to start out like I normally do with POU. That's a Nutnfancy term meaning philosophy of use. How do I envision this gun to be used? I talk about this a lot because it's very important. The reason it's important is because it tells you if your money is being spent well, and it kind of guides your purchase decision. Oftentimes, guys and gals will go out and buy an item of gear thinking it's going to serve in a particular way. They come to find out, hey, you know what, this sucks for that. And maybe their POU was just a little bit mismanaged or misthought of, so to speak. The POU on the PF-9 goes something like this. Obviously, a great police officer's backup gun, either in an ankle holster, if you can do it, belly band. I don't know if your department would allow you to do that. Just depends. Maybe inside the waistband holster. Also, if you're concealed carry permit holder, civilian variety, CCP, CCW, great option right here, the PF-9. Thirdly, and this is kind of something most will not think of, it could be a very great, very viable choice as a homeowner's defensive gun. If money is tight and you guys are going to buy just one gun, I would recommend you consider the Kel-Tec PF-9. It has adequate firepower, it has an adequate chambering to stop a bad guy, and in my experience, a lighter weight gun, a more compact gun along the lines of the PF-9 is just going to be used more often. Sure, it can serve in a home defensive role, you bet, but if later on you decide to get your concealed carry permit, guess what? You already have a gun that will serve that way. As opposed, if you bought something larger, maybe a Glock 23, an excellent gun by the way, however, it's a little bit big, a little bit bulky. Most guys that I know that carry Glock 23s concealed pretty much stop doing it after a while. It's just too big. They leave it at home. It's lightweight, but it's still bulky in width. So that's a POU, and it can serve in any one of those roles adequately. And that talks to size and weight. And here we're going to compare the PF-9 against its competition again, the Kahr PM-9. Those names get confusing, don't they? One of your most critical dimensions in carrying a gun comfortably is not so much length or height, it's width. No kidding. A wide gun does not carry very comfortably. Not that the Kahr is wide, it's not. It's actually pretty slim. 0.90 is the width of the slide according to Kahr. I haven't measured it myself. 0.88 inches, slightly, very slightly more narrow than the Kahr is the Kel-Tec PF-9. Width is a critical dimension, but we're talking slides. But let's look at the overall width of the grip frames. Notice that the Kel-Tec PF-9 on the left is indeed narrower, and this is just a little bit more blocky. Some guys will like that. They like the hand-filling thickness of the PM series perhaps, but I will tell you, after carrying these guns, both of them extensively in a variety of manners, both inside the waistband, also shoulder holster, like the Galco Classic Light holster I did a review on. By the way, it fits both guns. And belly band, the PF-9 carries well, and actually slightly more comfortably than the PM-9. So that's kind of surprising to me, and that's just something that you learn by doing. Once again, had to do my research on it to speak to that. The size is a little bit longer in the slide on the PF-9 than the Kahr PM-9, as you can see. That does give us a little bit longer sight radius. Ever so slight. I'll take what I can get in a subcompact gun. And again, we get into that compromise. I mean, if we're all about sight radius, then we'll carry a 1911, right? Because that will beat both of these guns. But overall, I like the small advantage that it offers. The barrel length is almost identical. 3 inches in the PM-9, 3.1 inches in the Kel-Tec PF-9. I hope I don't interchange those. If I do, you'll know which ones I'm talking about. The weight also is very similar. However, the PF-9 wins. Can you believe it? 15 ounces, a little bit more, a little bit less. 16 ounces. I'm talking about the gun with an empty magazine. That's the only really weight that we should be concerned with. Can you believe it? The Kahr PF-9 actually beats the PM-9. So when you couple that with the slimmer form factor, and it's not by a huge margin, but it is definitely slimmer in the size and weight category, believe it or not, the Kel-Tec comes out on top, albeit by a small margin. Don't underestimate the importance of that either. A small compact gun is one you're going to carry a lot, just like I mentioned in my mobility versus firepower videos. Check that out. But small and compact is something you're going to have on you. A good way to know that you've chosen a gun that's comfortable is if you get home or you get back to the station and you forget you have it on. Good job, you've chosen well. You say, you know what, oh, I still have the PF-9 on. That's a comfortable gun. How about firepower? Going on down to talking points. For me, the reference standard for pocket pistol firepower is about 5 to 6 rounds. I shouldn't say pocket pistol, that's a misnomer. Let's say subcompact pistol. That's because a small frame, lightweight revolver has 5 rounds, usually a 38 special. That's kind of the standard measure. And maybe the PM-9 too has 6 rounds in the magazine plus 1. That's a total of 7. Again, the Kel-Tec PF-9 comes out ahead with plus 1 rounds. Its magazine holds 7 rounds plus 1 in the chamber. That's 8. So I'll take all the rounds I can get. Firepower, therefore, for a subcompact pistol is pretty darn good. Now, it might be good to compare this gun against the Kahr CW series of guns. That is a larger version and a more affordable version of the PM series, which I'm referring to here. I don't have one for tabletop comparison right now. I will just briefly speak to it. The PF-9 actually, going back to size and weight, beats the CW series on both of these dimensions. Weight, it's going to be 3 ounces lighter. A CW9, sticking with the same caliber, is going to be 3 ounces heavier than this gun at 18 ounces. Yep. And then in size, it's going to be fairly close. Some dimensions will be slightly larger than the PF-9. So if we were just considering size, the PF-9, sorry for all the terminology, but I got to keep it straight, this gun is going to kind of fall between the PM9 and the CW9 in size. Just keep that in mind. Price-wise, though, when you talk about the PF9, it's very similar in price to the CW9. Just a consideration. But in firepower, this is on par with the CW9. God, these acronyms are just confusing, aren't they? Very similar. 7+1, though, getting back to the topic at hand, awesome. That's pretty good for a very slim, easy to carry, 15 ounce. That's amazingly lightweight subcompact pistol. How's the accuracy? This goes back to my shooting review of the PF-9. And heck, you went with me to that gun club up there and we shot it together. You saw how it performed. Let's get those targets out for a quick review. Here you go. I shot mostly from 7 yards, also at 15 yards. Remember, I'm left eye dominant, right-handed, so usually I tend to shoot left with my guns until I drift the sight, and I didn't want to drift the sights on that gun since it's on loan. But there you have it, 115 grain blazer brass. There's another group, not too bad. That's warming up in the center. Here's 15 yards, and this is not the best target to shoot, like I mentioned in my shooting review, because this is meant for scoped rifles, and in open sights, at least with my eyes, it's very hard to get really precise and consistent in the aiming process. But 15 yards, if I had a black circle, those would have tightened up a little bit. But still not too bad for a subcompact pistol. And then once, here's a couple more. Show these real quick. And again, we're talking about the gun. My variances could throw these off a little bit. In other words, my own ways of shooting. Guys could probably do a lot better than this. There's 7 yards, basically blowing one hole. Another 7-yard target. You saw me shooting these. There's another one. Pretty darn good. I'm actually very impressed with the accuracy of the PF-9. And then once I transition to these targets, that's what I should have been shooting to begin with. There's a good example right there of what the gun is capable of. Very good accuracy. On par with the PM9, if you would ask me. The gun's accuracies are about the same. And any gun that can shoot a single hole at 7 yards for a subcompact gun is pretty good by me. Now let me say, some guys say, why don't you shoot at 25 yards? One, I think it's a little bit unrealistic to shoot these guns at 25 yards. I think you're wiser to train 7 to 15 yards, heck, even closer. That's probably how you're going to use these guns, very close in. Yes, it's good to train and shoot at longer distances. At 25 yards, honestly, I think my capabilities are not that great. The groups would open up and it would be more of a kind of a critique of the shooter, not the gun. So that's why I pretty much keep it in close. Accuracy, more than you can probably deliver. If you're planning on shooting this as a recreational pistol, go for it. Like I said in my shooting tabletop review, though, it's hard to shoot accurately. It's only 15 ounces. Keep that in mind. 15 ounces is pretty darn lightweight. And it also has a relatively short sight radius compared to other full-size guns. So you're going to have to practice with it, and I say go for it. How about ergonomics, going down the talking points? I love the ergonomics on the PF-9, and I can say this after putting several hundred rounds of ammo through it. Up there in Spokane, you saw how I shot, I think, 100 rounds of that blazer brass and some jacketed hollow points. Since then, I put another 150 through the gun of various makes, and sure enough, the ergonomics are good. And that is surprising because when I first examined the gun, I thought that the sharp edges, which some Kel-Tec owners talk about, would be a factor. Namely, the sharp edge around the circumference of the magazine release. I thought that would be a factor. It wasn't. It worked fine. And also the grip. I like these grips that have kind of some really defined edges on them. Like this user's done. See, he's put the decal grip on it to make this very slick-sided PM9 side to have more traction. I don't think you have to do that with a PF9 since you have these blocks here. It actually holds and handles quite nicely. Other ergonomic considerations would be the trigger guard. It's nice and big. There's no protrusions inside the trigger guard. Slight one in the PM9. You kind of see how it raises up a little bit. I don't know why they do that, but enough room in there. Not a squared off, but kind of a flattened trigger guard. If you want to hook your finger there, you can. This is the slide lock. That's what Kel-Tec calls it, not a slide release. To me, it's basically the same thing. Functions the same way. No problems there, no sharp edges. The grip is a little bit longer than the PM9. And guys might want to consider that. If you find that the PM series is just too short for your comfort level, I don't have a problem with it personally. I don't mind it at all. Same goes with a Glock 26, Glock 27. Works great. But for you, if it's too short, then you might want to consider the PF-9 or the CW9 by Kahr. Both of them have longer grips, which you can get a better purchase on. I like that. And again, a trade-off on that is it gives us an extra round, which is pretty sweet if you ask me. Another thing, and this is going to kind of jump ahead, actually I'll just wait for simplicity, but sticking with ergonomics, the magazine release is right here, as it should be, dare I say should. The reason I say that is because, like you saw in the shooting, it's really easy when shooting these small Kel-Tec pistols to have your thumb drift down, accidentally actuating that magazine release in the firing sequence, and lo and behold, your magazine drops a micro inch, fails to strip off a cartridge, and you got to go through your tap rack bang drill to put another round in. So be real careful about where you place your thumb on the PF-9 or any of the small Kel-Tec pistols like I've mentioned. Otherwise, you may, like I have done, actuate that magazine release. Going on to simplicity. Did I cover everything? No, I didn't. Sights, actually. Let's back up a little bit on ergonomics. How are the sights on the PF-9? I like them. Now, let me tell you, the sights that are on here right now have been modified by the owner. They are no longer the stock sights, and that's because it is wearing what are called night sights, or night sighters. These are photoluminescent handgun night sights that glow in the dark when exposed to light. Kind of a poor man's tritium sights. They're pretty affordable. I may do a tabletop review of those. But the overall picture is the same, and that is a 3-dot presentation, which I find very fast and very adequate. I hate it when we get a subcompact gun and they feel like they don't need to put good sights on it. And some Kel-Tecs are like that. I always like good sights. You just don't know what is going to come your way. What if you have to make an accurate shot at distance? The Kahr PM-9 on the right uses the dot bar system, which is also very fast for alignment, very adequate. I don't really prefer one over the other as far as the sight types. They're both great. They give adequate precision and adequate speed. Also, in the Kahr, you can just, in the Kel-Tec, you can adjust your sights. I'm going to use the CRKT drifter today as my pointer, by the way. You can drift your sights left and right, which is cool, by an Allen wrench adjustment. Also, if you need to raise the impact point, you can shim underneath that sight, raise that rear sight a little bit. It will raise the impact of the sights. That's a big plus for a subcompact pistol, and not a lot of subcompact pistols have that capabilities. And just to finish ergonomics, I forgot to mention this. Overall feel is comfortable. I hope I spoke to that adequately. And the controls are right where I'd want them to be. That's the end of part 1. We'll pick it up in part 2 with Nutnfancy's PF-9 tabletop review. Thanks for tuning in. Here comes part 2.